Gentlemen, let me ask you a question. What is a man without pain? The answer is simple: nothing. A man who has never felt pain has never been tested, never been broken, never been forged into something stronger. You see, pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. It's the weight that builds your muscle, the fire that hardens your steel, the storm that prepares you for the next war. Without pain, you'd never know your limits, and worse, you'd never know how far you could go beyond them. Pain is the foundation of strength. When we say pain is the foundation of strength, we are talking about something fundamental to the human condition. Strength is not a gift that falls from the sky. It is earned, forged, and carved into a person's character through experiences that hurt. Physical, mental, and emotional pain all serve the same function. They strip away illusions, test resilience, and build the kind of toughness that no comfort can ever provide. Think about the body first. A man goes into a gym and lifts heavy weights. What is happening on a biological level? The muscle fibers are being torn apart, micro tears that are painful and exhausting, yet those very tears are what trigger growth. The body responds to pain by rebuilding itself stronger, denser, more resilient. Without the pain of resistance, the muscle never grows. Now, that's not just biology, it's a metaphor for life itself. Every hardship tears you in some way, but those tears are the signal that you are evolving. A man who avoids pain avoids growth. If you never test yourself, if you never feel the sting of failure, if you never step in discomfort, then you remain stagnant. The human mind and body are designed to adapt, but they only adapt when stress, struggle, adversity, all of these are forms of pain, and it is in enduring them that strength is born. Think of someone who has lived a life completely sheltered. He has always been protected from struggle. His parents paved the road, removed the obstacles, and softened every blow. On the surface, he looks comfortable, but beneath that comfort lies fragility. The first time life punches him hard, and life will always punch, he collapses because he has no reference point for resilience. Compare him to the man who has walked through fire, the man who has been broke, who has been rejected, who has felt the betrayal of people he trusted, who has pushed his body to exhaustion, who has tasted hunger, who has been mocked and laughed at. That man is dangerous not because he enjoys pain, but because he has learned to survive it. Strength comes from familiarity with suffering. Pain also builds strength because it teaches discipline. The mind rebels against discomfort. It seeks the path of least resistance. But every time you choose to endure pain deliberately, whether it's pushing through one more rep in the gym, staying awake an extra hour to finish work, running in the cold rain when you could be warm in bed, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching yourself that you control your mind, not the other way around. That process is never pleasant, but it is essential. Each painful decision to push further is another brick laid in the wall of strength. People admire discipline as if it's some mysterious quality, but at its core, discipline is nothing more than the willingness to endure pain consistently in pursuit of something greater. The same applies to emotional pain. Relationships break, loved ones die, dreams collapse, opportunities slip away. The pain of loss cuts deep, but in enduring it, a person develops perspective. A man who has suffered emotionally learns not to crumble at every setback. He realizes he can carry grief and still move forward. Emotional pain deepens empathy and builds mental resilience. It teaches patience and endurance of the unseen battles that others don't recognize. Strength is not only lifting weights or fighting wars, it's also being able to stand tall while carrying invisible wounds. That kind of strength only comes from walking through pain rather than running from it. Pain also has the power to sharpen clarity. When everything is comfortable, life feels vague, blurry, without urgency. But pain strips away the unnecessary. Imagine someone who's gone through a serious injury or illness. Suddenly, trivial complaints vanish. The petty dramas of everyday life no longer matter. What matters becomes sharp and undeniable: health, time, purpose. Pain forces clarity because it reminds us of our mortality and our fragility. Strength emerges in that clarity because it allows a man to prioritize, to focus on what is essential and ignore the distractions that keep weaker men trapped. Without pain, there is no urgency to grow, to fight, to pursue meaning. Pain is also a humbler. A man who's never known pain can become arrogant, believing he is invincible. Pain brings humility because it shows you that you are not untouchable, that you can be broken. But paradoxically, that humility is the root of real strength. A humble man trains harder because he knows he can be defeated. He prepares more thoroughly because he has felt the sting of failure. He doesn't underestimate challenges because he remembers the times pain taught him the cost of arrogance. Strength without humility is fragile ego, but strength built through pain is durable and grounded in reality. If you look at history, the strongest individuals were never the ones who lived soft lives. Warriors, leaders, inventors, visionaries, they all had to endure immense hardship. The lives that shaped them were filled with setbacks and pain. Those moments became the foundation of their greatness. The same principle applies today. The entrepreneur who failed multiple times before building a successful company had to endure the humiliation and financial stress of collapse. The athlete who dominates his sport has endured countless hours of pain and training, injuries, losses, doubts. The soldier who stands fearless in battle has already faced pain so intense that fear loses grip. None of them would have strength without the foundation of pain. Another aspect is that pain builds appreciation. When you know the struggle of hunger, you appreciate food. When you have felt the exhaustion of working 3 jobs, you appreciate financial stability. When you've been heartbroken, you appreciate loyalty. That appreciation is a form of strength because it prevents entitlement, and entitlement is weakness disguised as confidence. Gratitude born from pain creates a strong mindset, one that values what it has and fights harder to protect it. So pain is not something to be avoided or cursed. It is not an obstacle in the way of strength, it's the path itself. Every strong man you admire has his scars. Every scar tells a story, and every story is proof of survival. Pain builds toughness not only in the body, but in the spirit. Without it, strength is an illusion. With it, strength becomes unshakable. Comfort breeds weakness. Comfort breeds weakness because comfort by nature removes the very forces that shape resilience. When life is too soft, when every problem is solved for you, when every obstacle is cleared from your path, you never build the calusas necessary to endure reality. Comfort feels good in the short term, but it robs you in the long term. It takes from you the sharp edge that makes a man strong, focused, and capable. Weakness is not something that appears overnight. Weakness creeps in silently. It comes in the form of choosing the easier option one day, then the next, until it becomes a lifestyle. It's hitting the snooze button instead of waking up, scrolling on your phone instead of working, eating junk instead of fueling your body, choosing excuses instead of action. Each small act of comfort seems harmless, but collectively they strip away resilience, discipline, and strength. That is why comfort is dangerous. It disguises itself as harmless pleasure, but its effect is slow erosion. If you study the psychology of growth, the principle is clear. Growth only occurs when you step outside your comfort zone. That phrase is repeated so often it feels cliche, but it's grounded in biology. When the body is pushed into new stress, it adapts. When the mind is challenged, it grows sharper. When emotions are tested, they become more resilient. Without it is no trigger for adaptation. Comfort is stagnation. It locks you in a state of sameness where nothing changes and nothing improves. Imagine two men. One lives in luxury. Every day he wakes up in a warm bed, eats whatever he wants, never has to fight for survival. He has all the entertainment in the world at his fingertips and every problem is handled for him. The other man lives in struggle. He wakes up early because if he doesn't work, he doesn't eat. He pushes his body to exhaustion because survival demands it. He suffers hunger, rejection, and fatigue regularly. Which man do you think will be stronger when a real crisis comes? The answer is obvious. Comfort made the first man soft, unprepared for challenge, while hardship built the second man to steel. Weakness is not simply physical. Comfort affects the mind even more than the body. A comfortable man becomes entitled. He begins to believe the world owes him something because he has never had a fight for it. Entitlement creates fragility because the first time life denies him, he breaks. A man raised in constant comfort has no concept of persistence. He expects instant rewards, and when they don't come, he collapses. Compare that to the man who has lived without guarantees. He knows rejection is part of the game. He expects obstacles and setbacks, and because he expects them, they don't destroy him. That resilience makes him powerful, while the comfortable man falls apart under the same pressure. Comfort is also deceptive because it feels like safety, but safety itself is an illusion. The world is not safe. Economies collapse. People betray, health deteriorates, disasters strike, opportunities vanish. A man who builds his life around comfort is building a fortress out of paper. It looks solid, but the first storm tears it apart. Weakness born of comfort is invisible until tested, and by then it's too late. The man who has trained himself through discomfort, through discipline, through voluntary struggle has a foundation of stone. He may suffer in the storm, but he does not collapse. You can see this in societies as well. Civilizations rise through hardship. They are built by men who fought, bled, and endured. But once they achieve prosperity, once comfort spreads, discipline fades. Generations grow up without struggle. With that absence of struggle comes decay. The old saying is true: hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times again. Comfort is the good times that slowly poison the strength of a people. Weakness spreads when pain is eliminated. The lesson is the same for an individual. When you engineer your life to be too easy, you're writing the script for your own downfall. Comfort also dulls the senses. Think about how a man feels after a long, difficult run or after finishing a brutal workout. He is exhausted, but he feels alive. His senses are sharp. His energy is real. Compare that to the man who spends all day on a couch, watching television, eating snacks. He feels sluggish, heavy, and detached from reality. Comfort has dulled him. He has avoided temporary pain, but the trade-off is long-term weakness. The truth is that discomfort awakens you. It forces presence, focus, and energy. Comfort sedates you into passivity. And passivity is weakness because the world rewards action, not laziness. Comfort also erodes ambition. The moment life gets too easy, the hunger to push further fades. Why chase greatness when good enough feels pleasant? Why fight for more when you can sit in comfort now? This is why many men never realize their potential. They reach a point where they can survive comfortably and they stop. But survival is not living. True living requires chasing something bigger, and that chase always involves discomfort. Ambition withers in comfort. Greatness thrives in struggle. It's also worth considering the difference between temporary comfort and earned comfort. Temporary comfort, like sleeping in too long, indulging in junk food, avoiding hard work, creates weakness. But earned comfort, like resting after a long day of hard labor, enjoying a meal after intense training, taking a break after completing your goals, creates renewal. The difference is that one comes from avoiding pain, the other comes from enduring it first. A man who only seeks comfort without effort is weak. A man who works hard suffers and then enjoys comfort as a word is strong. The comfort doesn't weaken him because it is balanced with discipline. But when comfort is constant, weakness is inevitable, even at a deeper psychological level. Comfort is dangerous. The brain releases dopamine when you achieve something challenging. That is real satisfaction earned through effort. But the modern world offers artificial comfort, fast food, endless entertainment, instant gratification. These things hack the brain's reward system, giving dopamine without achievement. Over time, the brain adapts and real effort feels unnecessary. Why grind for years to build something meaningful when a quick distraction feels good instantly? That mindset is the seed of weakness. The man addicted to comfort loses his drive for real accomplishment. He becomes dependent on cheap highs instead of chasing true fulfillment. If you want proof, look at the greatest men in history, in sport, in business, and art. None of them lived in comfort during the years they built their greatness. They lived in discomfort, sacrifice, and constant pressure. Comfort came later, and even then, many of them kept seeking discomfort deliberately to avoid weakness. That is why soldiers train in brutal conditions even during peace. Why athletes push themselves even after winning. Why disciplined men wake early and grind when they don't have to. They understand that comfort is the breeding ground of weakness. And if you let it take over, strength disappears. Discipline is forged in pain. Discipline, because discipline is not built in moments of comfort. It is built when the body and mind scream to stop, but you continue anyway. Discipline is the act of choosing long-term growth over short-term pleasure. And that choice almost always hurts. There is pain in waking up before dawn when every fiber of your body craves more sleep. There is pain in pushing through the final set in the gym when your muscles are on fire. There is pain in sitting down to work for hours while distractions whisper at you to rest, play, or escape. Discipline lives in those moments where comfort is calling you and you deny it. Without pain, there is no test, and without a test, there is no discipline. Pain is the crucible where discipline is hammered into shape. It is not a one-time event, but a repeated confrontation with discomfort. Every day you meet pain in some form, and every day you have the chance to use it to sharpen your willpower. The man who avoids pain never practices discipline. He gives in to impulses, follows the easy path, and never learns control. Discipline is self-control practiced under stress. Imagine a soldier in training. The drills are designed to exhaust him, to push his body beyond limits, to strip his mind of comfort. The pain is intentional because in the fire of that pain, his discipline is created. Later, when real battle arrives, he is calm under fire because he has lived through worse. The discipline that allows him to follow orders, stay focused, and perform under chaos was not born in relaxation. It was born in suffering. The same principle applies in civilian life. The student who stays up late studying while his friends are out partying feels pain, but that sacrifice creates discipline that serves him for years. The athlete who runs miles in the rain when others quit is building discipline that later separates him on the field. The entrepreneur who works long nights, grinding through failure after failure, is enduring pain that forges discipline to stay the course when the stakes rise. Discipline is not about motivation. Motivation is fleeting, emotional, temporary. Discipline is permanent, and the reason it becomes permanent is because pain solidifies it. Every time you endure pain for the sake of your goals, you carve another groove into your mind. Eventually, that groove is so deep that action becomes automatic. That is discipline, habitual control born from deliberate suffering. Pain also teaches discipline because it removes illusions. When you are comfortable, your mind creates excuses. You tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow, or you deserve a break, or you can succeed without struggle. Pain destroys those illusions because pain is undeniable. You cannot fake the burn in your lungs during a sprint. You cannot pretend away the exhaustion of hours of focused work. You cannot lie to yourself when rejection stings. Pain makes reality clear, and in that clarity, discipline is demanded. You cannot argue with pain. You can only endure it or quit. The choice in that moment is what defines your discipline. There is also a deeper level to this truth. Discipline is not only about doing what you don't want to do. It is about mastering the self, and mastery of the self comes through denying impulses, desires, and weaknesses. That denial is painful. The craving for unhealthy food, the desire for distraction, the urge to quit, all of these feel good in the moment. Denying them feels like pain because you are fighting against your own instincts. That is why discipline requires strength. You're not just fighting external obstacles, you're fighting yourself. Every time you win that fight, you grow stronger, but the victory always comes with discomfort. Think of the man who trains in martial arts. Every punch he takes, every bruise he earns, every hour he spends repeating the same moves when his body is tired is painful. But that repetition builds discipline. Louder in the chaos of a real fight, that discipline shows itself as composure, control, and effectiveness. Without the pain of training, the discipline never exists. In fact, the most disciplined men are often those who have chosen pain deliberately. They seek it because they understand it is the only way to harden their will. Cold showers, fasting, brutal workouts, silence, long hours of work, all are forms of voluntary pain designed to sharpen discipline. A man who has never trained his mind through pain collapses when pain is forced upon him. A man who has chosen pain repeatedly has discipline to withstand it. Pain also reveals weakness. When you encounter struggle, your flaws rise to the surface. Maybe you realize you procrastinate. Maybe you realize you quit too easily. Maybe you realize your patience is short. These realizations hurt because they show you who you truly are. But that is exactly why discipline is built there. You see your flaws, you feel the pain of confronting them, and you choose to correct them. Without pain, your weaknesses remain hidden and you remain undisciplined. Discipline is not pretending to be perfect. It is the painful process of confronting imperfection and working on it daily. Another truth is that discipline born in pain creates freedom. Most people think discipline is restriction, but the opposite is true. A man with no discipline is a slave to impulses, moods, and circumstances. A man with discipline is free to pursue his goals regardless of how he feels, but that freedom is only earned through the painful process of conditioning. It is painful to wake early until your body adapts. It is painful to save money instead of spending it. It is painful to train instead of resting. Yet those painful choices eventually give you the freedom of health, wealth, and control over your destiny. Discipline forged in pain is the path to power. Even historically, you see this principle. Warriors, monks, scholars, all groups respected for their discipline lived lives of hardship. They fasted, they trained, they denied themselves comfort. Their pain was not accidental. The pain sharpens focus, strengthens will, and clears distractions. Modern men avoid pain, and as a result, discipline fades. But the law of life has not changed. If you want discipline, you must endure pain. If you want unbreakable discipline, you must endure pain consistently, deliberately, and with purpose. That is why the man who trains in suffering daily becomes unstoppable. His body may hurt, his mind may protest, but his will is unshakable. Discipline cannot be read about in books or understood through theory. It is only learned through experience, and that experience is always painful. Pain is the teacher, and discipline is the lesson. Every time you meet resistance, every time you endure, you are being taught discipline. Over time, you no longer see pain as punishment. You see it as a signal that you are growing. That shift is when true discipline is forged. The man who can embrace pain, welcome it, and use it to build his will is the man who is truly disciplined. Pain builds purpose. Pain builds purpose because without suffering, a man drifts aimlessly. Purpose is not born in luxury, it's born in struggle. When life is too easy, there is no urgency to search for meaning. There is no fire pushing you forward. But when you go through pain, when you are broken, when you feel the sting of loss, failure, rejection, betrayal, or emptiness, you begin to ask deeper questions. You ask why you are here, what you are meant to do, what is worth enduring all of this for. Pain strips away the illusions of comfort and forces you to confront the reality of your existence. That confrontation is where purpose begins. Every man who has built something meaningful can trace it back to a moment of pain. It might have been poverty. It might have been humiliation. It might have been heartbreak. It might have been failure, but there was always a point where pain became the catalyst. Pain is a mirror. It shows you who you are, what you lack, and what matters to you. Without it, you remain asleep, lost in distractions, chasing shallow pleasures. But the moment you feel pain deeply enough, you wake up. That wake-up call pushes you to find purpose, because without purpose, the pain feels meaningless. Pain demands an answer, and purpose is that answer. Think of the man who has lost everything. In that darkness, he either gives up or he finds a reason to keep going. That reason becomes his purpose. Think of someone who suffers an illness. The pain of weakness forces him to value health, and from that pain, he finds purpose in rebuilding his body, maybe even in helping others do the same. A man who is bullied may find purpose in becoming strong. A man who grows up in poverty may find purpose in building wealth. A man who loses someone he loves may find purpose in living a life that honors their memory. Pain plants the seed of purpose because it makes you search for a reason that justifies the suffering. Without pain, you might think you want something, but it is shallow. Many people say they want success, but until they feel the pain of failure, they don't truly pursue it. Many say they want discipline, but until they feel the pain of weakness, they don't take it seriously. Pain gives weight to your goals. It attaches emotion to your ambition, and that emotion is what fuels purpose. When everything is comfortable, you can afford to waste time, but when pain is burning inside you, every second counts. Purpose becomes clear because the cost of not having it is unbearable. Pain also builds purpose by revealing what doesn't matter. When you suffer, trivial things fall away, the gossip, the distractions, the meaningless pursuits, all of it becomes irrelevant. What stays is what truly matters. Pain clarifies. If you've ever gone through heartbreak, you know how quickly it reveals who your real friends are. If you've ever been broke, you know how quickly it reveals what expenses are necessary and what are luxuries. If you've ever faced death, you know how quickly it reveals how precious time is. That clarity is painful, but it builds purpose because it shows you where to focus your energy. It is also true that pain connects you to others. When you suffer, you understand suffering in others. That empathy gives you purpose beyond yourself. Many charities, movements, inventions, and works of art were born from pain. The person who went through pain decided to use it to create meaning, not only for themselves, but for others. Pain gave them a mission. Purpose often extends beyond personal ambition. It becomes about serving, creating, giving, fighting for something larger. Without the pain that opened their eyes, they would never have cared enough to act. Pain builds resilience, and resilience fuels purpose. Purpose is not something you choose once and then coast on. It requires constant work, and work is filled with pain. The only way to stick with it is if your pain has been great enough to fuel it. The man who has never suffered does not have the strength to pursue a difficult purpose. He will give up at the first obstacle because the discomfort is unfamiliar. But the man who has already suffered deeply has the endurance to stay with his mission. Pain does just spark purpose. It also sustains it. When the journey gets tough, the memory of past pain reminds you why you cannot quit. There is also a paradox in pain. The worst moments often give birth to the greatest direction. Many people can look back at their most painful experiences and realize that those were the turning points. At the time, the pain felt unbearable, but later they see that it shaped their path. The failure that destroyed their confidence forced them to rebuild stronger. The betrayal that broke their heart forced them to value loyalty. The loss that devastated them forced them to live with urgency. Pain is the forge in which purpose is designed. Without those moments, you might wander your whole life, never discovering what truly drives you. Even in the natural world, pain builds purpose. Animals adapt because of struggle. The harshness of the environment forces them to evolve. If everything were easy, they would never change. Humans are no different. Evolution, both physical and psychological, comes from adversity. If you are never tested, you never transform. Transformation always requires pain, and transformation always leads to a clear sense of purpose. The truth is, purpose is not comfortable. Purpose demands sacrifice. It demands you endure pain willingly over and over for something bigger than yourself. That willingness only comes if pain has already shown you the emptiness of comfort. A man who has lived only in ease cannot commit to purpose because he has never felt the need. A man who has lived through pain clings to purpose because he knows the cost of living without it. Pain strips life down to its raw essence. When everything is gone, when comfort is taken, when illusions are broken, what remains is truth. And in that truth lies purpose. You realize that time is short, that comfort is fragile, that nothing is guaranteed. Pain forces you to make a choice to drift or define. Those who drift remain lost. Those who define build purpose. And once purpose is built, it becomes stronger than pain itself because pain no longer destroys you. It fuels you. A painless life is an empty life. A painless life is an empty life because without pain, there is no struggle. And without struggle, there is no meaning. People think they want comfort forever. They dream of never being hurt, never being tired, never being rejected, never being tested. They fantasize about ease as if it's paradise. But the reality is a life without pain is a prison disguised as safety. It feels good on the surface, but deep down it is hollow. Humans are built for resistance, for challenge, for battle. Strip those away and what remains is emptiness, a dull existence where nothing matters. because nothing costs you anything. Pain gives value to joy. You cannot know what happiness is unless you have experienced sadness. You cannot appreciate warmth unless you have shivered in the cold. You cannot enjoy victory unless you have tasted defeat. Pain creates contrast, and contrast creates meaning. A painless life is like a song with one note, endless and monotonous. It has no highs and no lows, no rhythm, no climax, no story. The reason moments of joy feel powerful is because you know what it took to reach them. The medal around an athlete's neck shines because of the years of pain that preceded it. Take away the pain, and the medal is just a piece of metal. When life is free of pain, life is free of growth. Every form of progress comes from struggle. The muscle grows from tearing and repairing. The mind sharpens from being tested. Character strengthens from enduring hardships. A man who avoids pain avoids transformation. He stays the same year after year, never evolving, never deepening, never becoming anything greater. That is emptiness. To live year after year without becoming stronger, without testing limits, without expanding who you are is to waste existence. Pain is the engine of growth. Remove it and you sit out. You may be alive, but you are not truly living. A painless life is also an empty life because it erases purpose. Purpose is born in suffering and asking why when things hurt and searching for meaning to justify the struggle. Without pain, you never ask why, you never search, you drift. Purpose requires fire, and fire comes from pain. A man who has never suffered may seem happy, but inside he feels a quiet void because he has nothing to fight for. Comfort has given him everything except meaning, and meaning is the only thing that makes life worth the effort. The emptiness of a painless life can be seen in those who have every luxury, every comfort, every convenience. They live in mansions, they eat the finest food, they never feel cold, never feel hungry, never feel desperate, and yet depression and dissatisfaction still consume them. Why? Because their life is painless. They have nothing to fight against, nothing to rise above, nothing to earn. The human spirit is not fulfilled by endless consumption. It is fulfilled by overcoming. Strip away pain, you strip away fulfillment. Pain also brings depth. When you suffer, you see life differently. You feel deeper. You understand more. You connect with others more authentically. A man who has never known pain remains shallow, untested, unformed. He floats on the surface of life, never diving into its depths. He talks, but his words carry no weight because they are not backed by scars. Pain gives weight to your story. It makes your words real. It makes your presence strong. A painless man is empty because nothing with him has been carved out. He has never been hollowed and rebuilt, never been shattered and reforged. Pain sculpts the soul. Without it, the soul stays formless. Even in small things, pain gives life its flavor. Food tastes better when you are hungry. Rest feels sweeter when you are exhausted. Companionship feels richer after loneliness. Success feels incredible after years of failure. The very intensity of these experiences depends on the pain that preceded them. Take away the hunger, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the failure, and all you have is bland existence. You might fill your stomach, but you never feel satisfied. You might sleep, but you never feel rested. You might win, but you never feel triumphant. That is the emptiness of a painless life. It robs you of the depth of experience. A painless life is also dangerous because it creates fragility. A man who has never endured pain is unprepared for it. The first time life hits him, and life will always hit, he collapses. His entire structure crumbles because it was built on ease, not resilience. He lived empty, and when pain finally arrived, he had no tools to face it. The man who has lived with pain, who has embraced it, who has used it, is strong when the storm comes. He may suffer, but he does not break. His life is full, not because it was easy, but because it was real. The emptiness of a painless life can be compared to a video game played with cheat codes. At first, unlimited health, unlimited money, unlimited power feels amazing, but very quickly the game becomes boring. Why? Because the challenge is gone. Without challenge, there is no achievement. Without struggle, there is no satisfaction. The same principle applies to life. Remove pain and you remove the game itself. You're left with a hollow simulation where nothing matters because nothing requires effort. Pain is not the opposite of happiness. Pain is a condition for happiness. Without it, happiness does not exist. It becomes numbness. A man who chases a painless life is chasing numbness. He is chasing a state where nothing matters, nothing hurts, nothing excites, nothing fulfills. That is not living. That is existence without meaning is emptiness. A man who embraces pain, who sees it as necessary, finds fullness. Because every moment of joy, every achievement, every connection, every victory is magnified by the pain it costs him. Even love itself requires pain. To love deeply is to risk heartbreak. To commit is to risk loss. To open your heart is to accept vulnerability. Without those risks, love is not real. It is shallow, transactional, empty. Pain gives love its depth, its sweetness, its power. A painless life has no love, only convenience. That convenience feels empty because it lacks the raw vulnerability that makes connection real. A painless life is empty because it is unnatural. Nature itself is built on struggle. Animals fight for survival. Plants through soil, rivers carve stone through relentless force. Everywhere you look, pain is part of creation. Life advances because of resistance. To remove pain from life is to step outside the natural law, and outside of that law, there is nothing, no growth, no meaning, no evolution. Pain is the heartbeat of existence. To deny it is to deny life itself. Conclusion. So what's a man without pain? He is a man without strength because strength is built only by walking through struggle. He is a man without resilience because comfort has weakened his spirit. He is a man without discipline because true self-control is forged in moments of suffering. He is a man without purpose because only pain forces you to search for meaning. And in the end, he is a man with an empty life because a life without pain is a life without growth, without depth, without fulfillment. Pain not the enemy. It is the architect of greatness. It is the silent teacher that molds you into someone unshackled. To reject pain is to reject growth. To embrace pain is to embrace life itself. Remember, the difference between weakness and strength, between drifting and living with purpose, between emptiness and fulfillment is not talent, not luck, not privilege. It is your relationship with pain. Gentlemen, if you can endure it, you can evolve from it. If you can use it, you can rise because of it. Pain is not here to break you. It is here to build you. Good luck. I wish you strength on your journey, courage in your battles, and the wisdom to see every struggle as an opportunity. May your pain sharpen you, not soften you, and may you never forget that greatness is born from what you endure, not from what you avoid. Good luck to each of you, and thank you for your time.